Video 1, Adobe Illustrator Basics. Today we're going to learn a little bit about the Illustrator Workspace, and we'll lead you through making a couple simple shapes so you can see different tool options. The Workspace, like all the applications that we will be working with in Illustrator, uses different areas of the workspace for different things. Let's go ahead and open Illustrator. On your Launchpad, locate the icon, capital A, lowercase I, that stands for Adobe Illustrator. You might pull it down to your dock in order to access it easily. Mine is already in my dock, so I'll go ahead and click on the icon. You may have to sign in with what's called an enterprise ID, and you don't want to use the trial. You'll try to use the district purchased ID, and I'll see if mine is signed in. I click on the little icon of the person. It's redirecting me to sign in. Mine is signing in automatically, but let's see, we want to sign in with, let's see if this works. It does. I already had my password. So it's your student ID at smsd.org, and then the password you use to sign into your Mac. And it will tell you that you have an enterprise ID. It shows you your name. So you can close that, and that does indicate then that you are logged in. So we're going to go ahead and click on Create New. And we'll work through this before we actually press Create. We'll kind of look at a little bit about our workspace. At the very top of the screen is your menu bar. Just like in any application, this is where your primary controls are. Let's use a menu item now to standardize the way your screen looks. Go to Window. Oh, it won't let us until we actually create a new document. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to click on, let's look across at the top. Recent shows there are things that show for me because I've used different items in Illustrator recently, so those are showing in there. If I clicked on saved, it would show any templates I might have saved that I found online that I thought would be cool, but I don't have any. If I go to mobile, it shows me the presets for different mobile phones. So if you decide to create graphics for different phone screens, then your presets are already there, meaning they've already determined how many pixels it is or how many inches, and any other type of orientation or any other setting that you might need. Moving on to web, if you're designing for the web, they have some presets for you. Most of the work that we do will be print, so you'll go ahead and click on print, and you can view all the presets if you want by clicking on the plus sign. The letter preset is the one that we'll be using in this instance, but if you notice in the letter, it's got dimensions of 612 by 792 points. Well, points don't mean a lot to you unless you know that there are 72 points to an inch. So we could calculate and divide 612 by 72 to figure out how much or how many inches this would be, or divide 792 by 72 to figure out how many inches that is, but it'd be much easier to just go over to the right side of our preset details and change our units measurement that's showing. So we're going to go ahead and click on the drop down by points and change it to inches. And then we can see right away in our width and height box that it's an 8.5 by 11 inch piece of paper or screen. So we're going to go ahead while we're in our presets and change our title to your name and then practice. Can't type. There we go. And we're going to change the orientation. That is what side of the paper will have the long sides. Is it the left and right side of the paper to have the long sides? That orientation is called portrait. Or the top and bottom, if it has the long sides, that orientation is called landscape. We'll go ahead and just for today, so we can learn how to add or delete artboards, we're going to put in 4 artboards. Artboards are basically pages in Illustrator. So we will now have 4 pages in this document. And there are some other settings that we will talk about later on. We don't need to set anything at this point. We can just click on create. So you see now that we've got 4 artboards showing in our workspace. Let's say that you decided we don't really need all those artboards. So we can go to what is called our panel, window panel options, by going up to our menu bar and down to our artboards. And you see those are our 4 artboards. You know what, but for now let's just leave it. So I'll close that out. We're going to step back a minute and say, okay, now we can see our menu bar. This again is where most of the control options will happen. If we click on Illustrator, we can learn about Adobe Illustrator as far as what version we have. We can set specific preferences after we get more used to what kinds of preferences we might want. We can create new documents from the drop-down for File. We can also close or export documents and print documents. Going across, we have options for editing, objects, type, that's putting in words, selecting objects, applying effects, viewing in different ways, zooming in, zooming out, changing guides. All of this we'll cover in the next several weeks, but this is just a quick overview. In our window, again, it controls which panels will be opened and which will be closed. And then we have a help option. If we move on down, we've got a ribbon tool at the left side of our screen. If I click on the double carrots that are pointing to the left, it will condense them to one ribbon. If I click on the carrots when they go to the right, it puts the ribbons in a row, columns of 2. So I'm going to just put it at 1 for right now. And on the ribbon tool, we have selection tools. We have a magic wand to help select things, a lasso tool, a pen tool, what's called a curvature pen tool, a type tool to put in type, line segment. But speaking of line segment, there are also other tools that are beneath the line segment. And anytime you see a white triangle next to in the bottom right corner of a tool, that tells you that if you press and hold, there are more tools in there. So under the line segment tool, you also have the arc tool, the spiral tool, the rectangular grid tool, and the polar grid tool. If I move my cursor to the right side of the toolbar actually darkens, and this allows me, when it's dark, to release it, and it's called a tearaway. And so I can actually work with all 5 of those tools at a quick click rather than going and pressing and holding and finding the tool that I want. So it's nice to tear them away. If you decide you don't want them torn away anymore, you just click the X to close it, and you can go back over to your ribbon and find the tool that you want. We've got a rectangular tool that has different tools underneath it, a paintbrush, shaper tool, an eraser, and a few other tools that we'll actually be doing some of them in this class, and some of them they'll have to wait until high school. Down toward the bottom, you've got color options. The fill color is at the left side, and the stroke color is at the right side. The one that you click on and pull to the top is the one that you would be working with. So if I pulled the fill tool to the top and I wanted to change it from white, I can double click on it, and then I can move my cursor in the spectrum bar and click on a color that I might want. And now my fill color changes. If I want to change my stroke color, it's the outline, I double click on it and click OK. And now I've got a fill of blue and a stroke of red. If I were to go to my rectangle tool to draw with that, I would have a fill of blue and a stroke of red, but you can barely tell that the stroke of red, or the stroke is red, because it's only 1 point in size. So whenever you have a tool selected at the left side, you have tool options that show on the top. And you can see that my colors are repeated. I've got the fill of blue and the color of red, but then to the right of that, I have an option to change the stroke weight of my rectangle so the outline is actually thicker. You can really change it to make the appearance look a little bit different. For the shape tool, you can also look across at some of the other options while we're here, and we'll cover this in more depth later on, but today you're going to play with things a little bit. You can certainly try different variable width profiles to see what they look like. You can also try different brush definitions to see what they look like. Sometimes it kicks the point size back to a 1. So you might go ahead and apply a point size to a brush definition to see what effect you will get on it. You can change the opacity of the object that's selected. Opacity is how much you can see through it. And if, you can also go ahead and specify the exact size if you need to. All right, so we're going to look a little bit more at our tools. When I tear away a tool, that's now called a floating panel. You can also tear away or allow any of your other panels on the right side to, I'm going to reset my Essentials. Right now I'm in what's called the Essentials Classic Workspace, but the minute I start pulling tools and panels away, it changes the Essentials Classic. So to make sure I'm on the same one that you're on, and that you're on the same one I'm on, I would go ahead and go up to the Workspace Options box and click on Reset Essentials Classic. I probably should have done that from the very beginning so we all have the exact same thing. And then I'm going to go ahead and collapse the window that's open there. All right, so now I've got a certain number of panels that are automatically open in the Essentials Classic Workspace. So if I go to Window, you can see that anything that's checked, well, here, let's see, we've got artboards and layers and color. So you can just kind of hover over these to see what you've got. A color guide, color swatches, brushes. Some of them you see have been repeated from the tool options. And moving on down, your stroke panel, a gradient panel, transparency panel. All these panels are different depending on what workspace you have chosen. If I was working mainly with typography, or that is the letters of type, I can select the typography panel or workspace, excuse me, and different panels will open. I can select printing and proofing, and different panels are open. These are just preset panel setups that Adobe suggests you use if you have a specific purpose for your Illustrator documents. All right, we're going to go ahead and do Essentials Classic again. And we're going to reset our Essentials Classic to make sure we all have the same thing. All right, so you can float these panels at the left. You can also float any of the options at the right, but tearing away. You can go back and bring those all back by going up to your Essentials Classic and reset Essentials again, and it pulls everything back into place. There are more tools in the tool panel than you might think at first. Many of them are hidden under the other tools, so you need to make sure that you realize that underneath each of these tools there might be other ones. Here I hold down the eraser and you see a scissors and a knife. All right, the ribbon on the right side represents other panels that you'll be working with. They're individual boxes that govern how things work in the application. To see their names, again, you'll just put your cursor on the left side. Push that in. Toward the left side of the icon, and the screen tip will pop up and tell you what the name of the panel is. You can pull them out if you want. So go ahead and click on a few of those to see how that works. It pulls out, opens up for you. You can drag them anywhere. Close them again. You can also redock them if you wish by hovering over and placing them when you see an outline of blue. That means you can redock them. Panels also have their own menus on the top right. So let's go ahead and open our artboard menu now, our artboard panel. And on the top right, you see some lines. Those lines, since I have the artboard panel open, those lines have to do with the menu options, additional menu options for your artboards. So if I click on them and I say, I want to see what artboard options there are, I can change the size of my artboards if I need to. I can also rename the artboard if I want to name it something specific. And I can delete it if I want to. So I only want one artboard in the end, but it's not number one that I want to delete. So I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to go into Artboard 2, go to my menus, and I can just delete empty artboards from here to get all 2, 3, and 4 gone. Or I can click Delete Artboards, and it takes it away. Click on this. I could also delete by going to the trash can. Click on that, go to the trash can again. And now I can go ahead and redock my artboards and collapse them. Okay, now I want to be able to fill my screen with this one artboard that I have left. So a shortcut in Illustrator that you'll use quite often is Command plus to zoom in, Command minus to zoom out, and Command 0 to fill your screen. So remember those. All right, now we're going to look at the pen tool, because you've been using the pen tool in your pen tool game, and it works similar to how it worked in the pen tool game. So I just click, 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 and go to the end and click. If I click and drag, then I will get my curves. Just kind of click back, and if I see that 0, that little circle in the bottom right of my pen, that means I'm closing that shape. Any closed shape can add a fill to it whenever after the fact, if it's a closed shape. All right, if I decided I wanted to do something else with these underneath my pen tool, I can add anchor points, delete anchor points, or use an anchor point tool to modify anchor points. So I can actually click on that anchor point tool and then just start taking some of my anchor points and manipulating them to make a different unique shape. I'm going to change that back to the regular pen tool. And then lastly, I'm going to show you the selection tool. When you are selecting a shape that you want to move, let's say, you click on your selection tool, click on the shape, and you'll get a little move icon that'll tells you, oh yes, you can move that now, and it moves to a different location. If you want to select a different shape, you can actually draw around it and it selects the entire shape. At that point, you can stretch it, the entire shape, or you can go into your direct selection tool and click on right on the path to move the shape. All right, let's see. We talked about stroke weight. Anytime you have a shape selected, you can modify items that have been attached to that shape. So let's say I want to change the shape and the color of my stroke. And just a couple clicks, as long as that shape is selected, I can go ahead and modify different options for that shape. You can also bring out your color panel over to the right and pull it down a little bit and actually use your eyedropper to go around into your color panel and just see what colors might look great with the shape that you have created. There are two colors for every single object, and one is the fill color and the other is the stroke color. So when you want to change the line of something, that's the stroke or the line itself. If you want to change the inside part, what it's filled with, then that's the fill color. You may have to pay attention to the boxes that are beneath the color swatches on your ribbon. The first one is for color, the second one is for gradient, and the last one is for none. So if you would choose none on that, it takes away that stroke color. If you choose gradient, it will actually give you your gradient panel, and at that point you can go ahead and change your color options for what you want for your stroke. I'm going to go ahead and change it back to a regular color. Oops, I'm on my fill. Undo. I need my stroke up, change back to a regular color, change over to a different color there, and my point size is very tiny. All right, so that's about all we're going to do today. We'll play more with the pen tool tomorrow and learn how to manipulate some of our lines. But this is a basic overview of the Adobe Illustrator Workspace. Just remember, whenever you don't have the panels you think you need, go ahead and go up to Essentials, reset Essentials Classic, and you'll get back to the panels that you think you're supposed to have up. Some people accidentally lose their ribbon, and this is the one way you can get it back. Also, if while you're playing you accidentally click on Perspective Grid tool, you'll get a grid in your document that looks similar to this, a perspective of a building. About the only way you can get rid of it is to hold down the Command key, press the Shift key, and press the letter I, and that will remove it for you. All right, that's it.